The ground beneath California is not as solid as it seems. It is a complex puzzle of tectonic plates constantly grinding against each other. For millions of people who call this state home, the threat of an earthquake is a part of daily life. What if the next big one is more than just a big one? What if it is an event so massive it could reshape the very map of America? This is the story of the Mega-Quake that could split California in half. California sits on the edge of two gigantic tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. Their boundary is the infamous San Andreas Fault, a scar running over 800 miles through the state. These plates are not moving in harmony. The Pacific Plate is grinding northwest, while the North American Plate moves southeast. They slide past each other at a rate of about 2 inches per year, the same speed at which your fingernails grow. But this movement is not smooth. The plates get stuck. Friction locks them in place, and for years, sometimes centuries, the pressure builds. Strain accumulates along the fault line like a coiled spring. When the pressure finally becomes too much for the rocks to handle, they snap. The stored energy is released in a violent burst, sending seismic waves tearing through the earth. The San Andreas Fault is divided into 3 main segments: northern, central, and southern. The central segment creeps along fairly steadily, releasing stress in small, frequent quakes that are often unfelt. The northern segment, however, caused the devastating 1906 San Francisco earthquake. It has been relatively quiet since, meaning stress is once again building. It is the southern segment that worries scientists the most. This section, running near Los Angeles and San Diego, has not had a major rupture in over 300 years. This long period of silence is not a good sign. It means an immense amount of stress has been stored, waiting for a trigger. Scientists from the U.S. Geological Survey (USGS) have run complex simulations to understand what would happen when the southern San Andreas finally gives way. They call this scenario the big one. Their research suggests a magnitude 7.8 earthquake is a realistic possibility. Such an event would rupture over 180 miles of the fault, from the Salton Sea in the south all the way to Lake Hughes north of Los Angeles. The shaking would last for nearly 2 minutes. In those 2 minutes, the world for millions of people would be turned upside down. Imagine standing in downtown Los Angeles. The ground would begin to lurch violently, throwing you off your feet. Buildings would sway and groan under the immense stress. The sound would be deafening, a combination of the earth's roar and the shattering of a modern metropolis. But the real story of this Mega-Quake is not just about the shaking. It is about what happens next, and how a geological event could physically divide the state. The San Andreas Fault is a right lateral strike-slip fault. This means that during a quake, the land on the Pacific Plate side, the west lurches to the northwest, and the land on the North American Plate side, the east shifts to the southeast. In a magnitude 7.8 event, the ground could be displaced by an average of 15 feet. In some areas, right on the fault line, the displacement could be as much as 30 feet. Think about that for a moment. A road crossing the fault would be severed, with one end suddenly 30 feet away from the other. This is where the idea of California splitting comes into play. It is not that the state will fall into the ocean that is a popular but scientifically inaccurate myth. Instead, the infrastructure that connects the two halves of Southern California would be catastrophically severed. All major lifelines would be cut. California is crisscrossed by a network of highways, railways, aqueducts, and pipelines. A significant number of these lifelines cross the San Andreas Fault in the Cazon Pass, a narrow mountain pass northeast of Los Angeles. Interstate 15, the main highway connecting Southern California to Las Vegas and the rest of the country, runs directly through this pass. It would be destroyed. Rail lines carrying goods from the massive ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach would be twisted and broken. The economic impact would be immediate and felt nationwide. But the most critical lifelines are the ones that carry water. Southern California is a desert. It relies on water imported from hundreds of miles away. Several of the state's largest aqueducts, which are essentially giant water-carrying pipes and canals, cross the San Andreas Fault. They would be shattered by the ground displacement. The Los Angeles Aqueduct, the California Aqueduct, and the Colorado River Aqueduct would all be compromised. Gas and oil pipelines would also rupture, creating the risk of massive fires. After the 1906 San Francisco quake, More damage was caused by the resulting fires than by the shaking itself. With water mains broken, firefighters would have little ability to combat the hundreds of fires that would likely erupt across the region. The state would be physically and functionally split. The communities to the west of the fault would be isolated from those to the east. Help from the outside would be nearly impossible to bring in. Roads would be impassable, and airports would likely be damaged. It would create an island of over 20 million people, cut off from essential supplies of water, food, fuel, and medical aid. A study called the Shakeout Scenario painted a grim picture of the aftermath. It estimated nearly 2,000 deaths, 50,000 injuries, and over $200 billion in damages. The number of displaced people could reach into the hundreds of thousands, creating a humanitarian crisis on a scale not seen before in the United States. But could the split be more permanent? Some theories look beyond the immediate aftermath and into the deeper geological future. The boundary between the Pacific and North American plates is not just the San Andreas Fault. It is a wide zone of complex fractures. The main fault could, over time, shift. Some geologists theorize that a new boundary is forming to the east and into the eastern California shear zone. This region has seen an increase in seismic activity. If the plate boundary were to shift here, it would be a slow geological process taking millions of years. Over that immense timescale, the Gulf of California could continue to rip open, extending northward. Water would flood the Imperial and Coachella valleys, which are already below sea level. Eventually, this new sea could connect with the ocean to the north, turning a large part of Southern California into an island. Baja California and the coastal part of California would be fully separated from the North American continent. This is not something that will happen in our lifetime, or even in the lifetime of our civilization. It is a process of deep time, a reminder that the planet we live on is a dynamic and ever-changing system. But the threat of the big one is very real and very immediate. The southern San Andreas Fault is primed and ready. The USGS gives a 70% probability that a magnitude 6.7 or larger earthquake will strike Southern California in the next 30 years. The probability of the big one, a magnitude 7.8, is smaller, but it is not zero. Knowing this, what can be done? California has some of the strictest building codes in the world, designed to help structures withstand shaking. There is a constant effort to retrofit older buildings, bridges, and infrastructure to make them more resilient. Early warning systems are also being developed. The Shakeler system can provide seconds, or even tens of seconds, of warning before the strongest shaking arrives. This can give people time to drop, cover, and hold on, and allow for automated systems to shut down trains and gas lines. But technology can only do so much. The key to survival is preparedness. Every household needs a plan. Having a disaster kit with water, non-perishable food, and first aid supplies is not a suggestion. It is a necessity. Understanding that you may be on your own for days or even weeks is a critical mindset. The split of California may be a temporary infrastructural one, but its effects would be long-lasting. The Mega-Quake is not a question of if, but when. The ground beneath California holds a colossal amount of tension, and one day it will be released. The event will be a stark reminder of the power of nature and our place within it. It will test the resilience of society in ways we can only begin to imagine. Thank you for watching. For more deep dives into the forces that shape our world, be sure to subscribe to Documentary Reel